Sometimes to achieve equality, you have to take a different route. From dominating junior and high school tennis to playing on her college's men's team and then joining the women's tour in its infancy and along the way dethroning a legend, Betsy Butler truly was a tennis pioneer.
Just being, the young girl that she was and being brave enough to be an athlete. In essence, she was a role model for other young girls, around the world.
Elizabeth Betsy Butler, an Augusta native, started playing tennis at the age of 12 after responding to a newspaper advertisement for tennis instruction at the old Augusta Tennis Center. By age 16, she was Georgia's best junior player, achieving a top 20 national ranking and made the 9-state Southern intersectional team 3 times.
So Betsy was able to make that that major transition from just being a Georgia tennis player, #1 excellent tennis player, to making the leap to the national scene.
She dominated at the junior level. I was 9 years old when I started playing, and when you're a little kid and you're trying to learn about how to play and who to model your game after, I used to love to go watch her play. And she served and volleyed, so I tried to model my game after her and play aggressively and serve and volley. And I just remember she was tall and just dominating and just intimidating.
She once played the Florida section's best player, Chris Evert, losing a close 6-4, 6-3 match on the grass courts of the Baltimore Country Club.
Chris Evert was the legend, the standard by which all were measured, the very top player from a very young age. And to be able to be on the same court and compete in a competitive match with Chris Evert is something that I'm sure Betsy cherishes to this day.
Butler's junior success carried her into high school at Richmond Academy, where she won the Class AAA high school singles title as a sophomore and a junior, but skipped her senior year to advance her tennis career.
I know it's hard to win a state championship, and so for her to win back-to-back at a high classification is certainly a great achievement.
Butler grabbed the attention of college coaches as she became the first player to earn a tennis scholarship to Augusta College, where she played on the men's team. Butler played #1 singles and #1 doubles, winning about half her matches while only a freshman.
So there wasn't a women's team at Augusta College, and she played on the men's team. And that just shows that there was no intimidation to her. She knew what she wanted, and she went out and did it, and played #1 for them. And probably a lot of the things that she did set the table for those of us who came along after her, and we were able to play on women's teams.
Butler then transferred to the University of Florida, but stayed only 1 quarter before getting an invitation to play in the USTA's new professional tour. It was created to compete with Billie Jean King's Virginia Slims Tour. She would join the ranks of both Chris Evert and Yvonne Goolagong.
She just jumped at the chance, I think, and knew that she'd go back to college and that she could go back to college someday, but you can't go back to tennis. You can't say, I'm going to wait 5 years or 7 years and then, become a professional tennis player. So she was smart enough to realize that this was an opportunity that you don't want to let go.
It wouldn't be long before Butler made what many consider the biggest statement of her career. In 1973, at the age of 19, an Atlanta tennis promoter approached Butler about playing in a Battle of the Sexes match against Georgia tennis great Betsy Grant, who was 63 years old at the time.
She was ahead of any of the women in Atlanta, like Lee Froshin and Zoe Mills, that were already playing. And so I knew this match was going to be tough.
It was just days after the iconic meeting of Billie Jean King and Bobby Riggs in Houston's Astrodome. The following Sunday at the Betsy Grant Tennis Center, Butler faced off against Grant, a former top 10 player in the world.
There are people there, I don't know where they came from, and they're seeing this match. And I guess it's because after Billie Jean King, Bobby Riggs thing. Sunday was just sort of a day that most people took off and were around. This day, that place was packed. And it was unbelievable atmosphere and looking around, and it was something else.
And before a crowd of 500, Butler won in 3 sets and collected the winner-take-all purse of $500 and gained the respect of the Atlanta tennis community in the process.
Betsy, she got the different game, and Betsy was still, he was in his 60s, and these people can still play some ball, but she's tough. She was too strong for him.
That was just a a further statement to the growth of the sport to be able to see men and women competing in a level environment, which Betsy took the gold.
For the next 4 years, Butler found success on the Pro Tour, which had now become the Women's Tennis Association. She reached the top 30 ranking in the world in doubles and a top 100 in singles.
Just such a high level of tennis. You're playing against the best around the world, and to be top 30 in doubles and top 100 in singles, it's an amazing accomplishment.
Butler also spent 1 year during that stretch as the head tennis professional for Augusta's Westlake Country Club.
She was the director of tennis, so she set up, group lessons for kids and private lessons and exhibitions and tournaments for the adult players and all that good stuff to make it a really fun, thriving place to play tennis. But she also ran the tennis shop, and she did very well in the tennis shop too, and I think that that kind of showed her that she had the entrepreneurial spirit.
After the tour, Butler went to California to work for Billie Jean King and her husband Larry King through their startup company King Enterprises. She handled tennis publications, including the WTA's inaugural monthly newsletter.
Women's Tennis Association newsletter was just this small, 4-page thing, but it went to all the players around the world, professional women's tennis players, all of the sponsors around the world, all of the journalists that were involved in tennis. And it was an important part of the history of women's tennis.
Butler never really left the game. Twice in the 1980s, she won the local 32-team qualifier for the National Saxe-Codal Doubles Tournament in New York with partners George Amaya and Larry Schnall.
Well, I was just seeking a mixed doubles partner to play in the Saxe-Codal tournament back in, I think, in the early 80s. And Betsy came highly recommended to me, and we hooked up. I played against and with her many times in that tournament, so just enjoyed every minute of it.
In 1992, Billie Jean King asked Butler to be the general manager of the Atlanta Thunder of World Team Tennis. The Thunder went on to win the championship that year, the first Atlanta pro sports team to claim a title since the Atlanta Chiefs soccer team in 1968.
Just everything that went into becoming such a great tennis player, she just transferred over into becoming an administrator. So I would imagine that it was an easy transition for her just because of the assets that she brought from being a player to being an organizer.
Butler's journey through the game has continued over the years, and now it has come full circle with her induction into the Georgia Tennis Hall of Fame.
It's almost 2 or 3 careers and packed into one life in tennis. So she's very deserving, and it's a great honor for her.
Congratulations to Betsy Butler, a 2019 inductee into the Georgia Tennis Hall of Fame.